Welcome in to The Right Stuff, a Blood Bowl podcast brought to you by Empire Games. I'm Yannie, here with Nathan. How you doing?
Not great, Yannie.
Yeah, we only have 2 games that happened in the span of this week. And I know last week I had mentioned that it would probably be a pretty quick episode. I will not make the same mistake twice, as the president once said, fool me can't be fooled again. So, yeah, we got 2 games to talk about and then 1 more game to look forward to, or not look forward to, as some in this room might have it. But
yeah, I guess it's as good as time as any to remind everybody about the upcoming league. For everybody excited to play a new round of Blood Bowl that they can complain about. The new league is going to start on June 1st, and this is going to be a carryover league, so you can redraft teams that may or may not have been eliminated this past week. You can bring those forward, or you can start a new team. We've got new rules. We've covered that a couple of times, but just to recap that real fast, you can make a new team with $1 million in gold, and then you can add up to 6 primary skills to the roster, and you can substitute 2 primary skills for a secondary skill. And you can submit those through the form that is in the Discord channel. So, yeah, wanted to throw that in there at the beginning this time as opposed to burying it at the end of the podcast for everybody tuning in. Looking forward to the next league. I've seen at least 1 new person, so I'm excited for the new league. And I have to keep that optimism for the new league to stave off the despair of this league.
yeah, I will say that in sort of preparation for some other games, I played a sort of scrimmage game with a new team using the rules put in place with the primaries against someone who had redrafted their team, and it felt pretty good on balance. Like, I didn't feel like I was getting completely washed by the team. It was a pretty good Lizardmen team playing with gnomes, so it felt pretty solid. Looking forward to seeing the sort of breakdown, like once we get to preview the next season, getting to talk about the breakdown of how many people brought over old teams or started with something new, and seeing those skill layouts will be very interesting to kind of get into and talk about.
Right now I want to say it's kind of split. I'll just take a quick peek at the list over there. We got 16 registered. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looks like 8 new teams, 8 redraft teams as through 16 people. That's actually not a bad mix, really, right? Yeah. That's kind of where you want it, I think. You want it to be just as appealing to bring over players as it is to start a new team, right? So I feel pretty good about this. We'll see where the season goes. I was looking at potential redrafts for my corn team. One of the possible rosters involves bringing forward 3 players. Now, between those 3 players, they're right at like 100 SPP worth of stuff. I end up with like 2 rerolls, an apothecary, and 11 players. But because corn is expensive, I don't have like the full roster of Bloodseekers. So, I think I could wiggle this list around a little bit, maybe try to bring forward somebody else or whatever. But honestly, the Bloodseekers are so hard to level up that bringing forward a leveled up Bloodseeker sounds really appealing to me. So,
yeah. Well, let's, I guess, segue into the reason why you were feeling the desire to redraft that quarantine. Let's talk about the semifinal game, number 1.
Yeah, honestly, this was a really good game. Like, I think from an objective standpoint, I think there were a couple people who were watching the game. I think this is a game that comes down to really just like a couple of rolls here or there, and I think that's like the best games of Blood Bowl are gonna be that way, where the conclusion is not foregone at any given point. So last time I chatted about the inducement game, And I actually had an epiphany on my drive home the night before. And I had spent some time talking to a couple of the other players in the league, talking about what I could do for inducements in the game. And I was strongly leaning towards taking Hack Flim, because Hack Flim would provide a scoring threat. And so if Wayne walked into the game with 170k with like the intention to take Run Below, then I could take Hack Flim, give him 380 in inducements, and then that would incentivize him to take Morgue. Now, it turns out he would never have taken Morgue because he felt like Morgue was so much easier to kill than Deeproot. He would have opted for Deeproot and a reroll instead. So he actually took Dodge on a tree before the game. And so he was giving me 130 in inducements beyond... Sorry, he was gaining 130 inducements beyond Griff and the Chef. 130 in inducements was like a number of things. Could be, and some of those might be easier to play around. Rodney, Cindy, Puggy. There's all kinds of like random low-cost star players that he could take in the 130 range. He said he was debating like Rodney plus Halfling Hot Pot. That was actually one of his possible configurations. Now, I didn't feel confident about my ability to win the game with just 11 players. I thought I would take some attrition due to the trees during the course of the game. And so my brilliant epiphany came in the form of inducing a mercenary Bloodseeker. And the rationale here is that a 4-strength, 10 armor guy is a whole lot better against trees than the alternative, right? Now, I would like a Gutter Runner, but if I had taken a Gutter Runner and he was at 130 and I took Skitter, that would put him to 280. He could take Deeproot. And I don't like my chances. I had already played against Deeproot already in this, and Deeproot killed 3 people or something in that game, so I wasn't like keen to play against Deeproot again anytime soon. And so the 140 mark put him to 270, so he took Run Below and a reroll. So I actually feel pretty good about how that played out. I think I navigated that about the best that I could. I would end up with 12 people on the roster plus an apothecary, and I felt pretty good about my chances then. I think it was the right call, because I think ultimately, based on how the game played out, I don't think anything I decided before the game started really cost me the game. And so Wayne starts the game with the ball, and so I have to navigate this and try to mitigate the damage that he can do to my team. And so, honestly, the mercenary Bloodseeker overperformed in that game. I wasn't going to throw a block with him that wasn't 3 dice. So even though he doesn't have block, that didn't matter. So I think he might have thrown 1 or 2 hits. It was not many, but he wasn't there to throw hits. He was there to absorb damage, and he did a pretty good job of it during the course of the game. I think he got stunned 1 time, but other than that, he took a beating from the trees and did a pretty good job of keeping at least 1 tree tied up the whole time. Now, Wayne was pretty terrified of the Bloodspawn, I think rightfully so. He didn't want his trees to receive the Alpha Strike from the Bloodspawn. Now, I think we ended up... the trees in the Bloodspawn, we'll call it a draw over the course of the game. They didn't actually really come into conflict, except for a few turns. There was one where a tree got a hit on the Bloodspawn in the first half and knocked him down and broke his armor, but I managed to get out of that with just a stun. And there was like a chance that a halfling was going to throw a foul on the blood spawn, just an opportunistic foul. But I think that halfling like failed a dodge or something somewhere in there, so that didn't get to go through. Now I think the first half, it was not looking the way the game was not going the way I wanted it to in the first half, because his trees only rolled one root, and that was on turn 1, and so the trees were just kept pushing the box forward and kept getting the Griff into a better position. And I was mostly just trying to offer a token resistance anyway. I don't think I could really stop him from scoring. I just need to, what I was figuring is I need to just put enough pressure on him to force him to score, and then get the ball back, and then try to tie it up at the half. So now the chef got 2 rerolls, and so I only had 1 reroll for that half, and I was going to try to save it for my offense, if I could help it. And so there were a couple times where I threw like a 1 die block. One of them was with one of my wrestle tackle marauders, and I rolled a skull on a halfling. It was a 1 die block that would have turned into a 2 die block, right? And so I let that go. That block ended up like opening up a lane for Griff to kind of like squeeze through, and I didn't have a good hit on him, and so Griff ended up stalling a couple of turns. Now, I think the most interesting part of this drive happens on like turn 7. We had a timeout, so there was like a little. This drive was truncated compared to like a normal Blood Bowl drive, and so Wayne gets greedy, and he has Griff blitz one of my tackle wrestle marauders that I was moving into the area to try to force Griff to go score with, right? And so Griff gets greedy, runs over there, rolls skull both down, uses his once per game to reroll the skull, and rerolls into skull. And so Griff has to wrestle down that guy, and Griff has the ball, and this causes a turnover. And so I dodge my Sure Hands Corngore away, pick up the ball, and where I pick up the ball, I'm standing right next to Griff. So I wanted Griff to roll as many dice as possible if he's going to hit this dude. So I do 1 go for it to move the Corngore up, and I fail it. So I use my 1 reroll here. And I justify that reroll use, meaning Wayne has 1 turn to try to score on his turn 8. And if he doesn't score there, I get through the first half with no score, and I get the ball at the beginning of the next half, which at that point would feel like a win, right? So I make 1 go for it. It fails. I re-roll. I make the go for it, but I can't make any more go for it. There were a couple guys in the area that I could shore up the position with, but ultimately I just decided to stop rolling dice because I feel like having the ball in the hands of a blodger to start his turn 8 is really good. Mm-hmm. I have a wrestle tackle guy perched on Griff, so if Griff does anything, he's going to have to like dodge away from tackle. And I think Wayne has 1 reroll left at this point. So what I failed to account for is that a tree is close enough, and the tree blitzes my ball carrier. He like dodges a halfling over there to get an assist, gets 3 dice into my ball carrier and rolls the splash to knock him down, which is about, I think that's like 50-50 in that instance. And so my Corngore goes down, and the tree casualties the Corngore. And he rolls a badly hurt. So I pop my apothecary right there. Now I've gotten through the rest of the half with like minimal damage. I think like my kick guy got KO'd somewhere in here. But I managed to make it through the rest of the half with minimal damage. I pop my apothecary. And and because I don't like my chances of winning the game without this corn gore. And so the ball bounces off of Griff's body and then bounces into my end zone. And Griff stands up, has to dodge into the end zone on a 3, which he fails on the first roll. But Wayne makes the loner roll, makes the dodge, and then picks up the ball on a 3 to score on turn 8, which is like a little frustrating because I'm like right there. The ball had to bounce in like a more favorable position for him to not roll any more dice, right? Like if the ball's on the other side and Griff has to make like an extra dodge or some go for it or like roll some other stuff. But anyway, I wasn't actually banking on stopping this touchdown until Griff got a little greedy. So I was like, well, that sucks. I get one turn of hitting him. And so Wayne doesn't want to put the trees in trouble. So he puts 3 halflings on the line to set up defensively. So I set up to hit these halflings. I even put like my corn gore in the backfield to go after the ball. I set up, and he sets up like a bunch of his guys like 6 spaces away. So I have to make go for it if I want to blitz any of them. And he scatters the ball, rolls the kickoff event. It's a timeout. So we actually get back the turn that we lost on turn 1. Now, I knocked down all 3 halflings on the line, and I injured 2 of them. And then my blitz for the turn casualties another halfling. So on turn 7, I take 3 halflings off the pitch. And then turn 8, I take another halfling off the pitch. And I was kind of a long shot to score here anyway, and I don't have any rerolls. So I don't quite get a touchdown here. I think there's a world where I could get this touchdown. It just didn't quite pan out that way. But what happened is I was able to actually exhaust Wayne's reserves. He had 5 halflings in reserve. Now he's got 5 in the casualty box between like the 1 I casualtied on his first drive and the 5 I took off the pitch, or 4 of them that I took off the pitch in just that 2 turns right before the half. And so the second half, he does put his trees back on the line, and but this drive is just like calculated brutality. I take another couple halflings off the pitch, KO like 1 or 2, and the ball is never really in danger. The chef does get 2 more rerolls, but I roll a coaching on that drive, so I get an extra reroll. So I feel pretty good about that. I do roll a double skulls somewhere in here, and then but I just bully his team relentlessly, stall a bunch at the end zone, and the one thing that I think was like a mistake that I made in this. I had moved my corn gore 2 spaces from the end zone because I didn't want him to uphill 2-die me and try to push my corn gore into the end zone and force me to score, and so that he could get the ball back in time. But he did base me with a halfling in there. He just dodged 1 in to make me roll dice. And sure enough, I throw a block with the guy with the ball. It would have turned, if a push, block would have put the halfling on the ground. A push would have moved the halfling into base with a frenzy tackle guy, who would have thrown a hit on him then. And I didn't want to like blitz him. I wanted to use blitz on like something else more relevant. But I rolled double skulls on that block. So I think my miscalculated error here is not just getting 3 dice on this halfling. Right, make a 1 in 36 into a 1 in whatever, right. 1 in 216 or something. So that's like my one mistake there. But I score. He fails his 1 turn attempt. Kick made him roll like maximum possible dice. He was like 1 square away from scoring. He even sunk a reroll into it. But we get to go into halftime, and I think he's down to like 7 or 8 players. I got my full team. My drive was so just ruthlessly efficient that I've got my whole team. I win the roll for the ball. So I'm receiving. I'm up players, and I feel pretty good about the position I'm in. And so I, go to execute the exact same drive that I just did. The problem is that this time, I had made like an offhand comment about how Rumbelow was playing pretty badly during the course of the game. I think Rumbelow threw like a lot of blitzes and he rolled a lot of like skull pushes and stuff like that. So Rumbelow took that insult very personally, and Rumbelow proceeded to go for like 6 for 6 for armor breaks on his hits.
Okay.
And so every single time Rumbelow threw a block, it resulted in like one of my players going off the pitch. I had based Rumbelow with a Bloodseeker to try to keep him pinned in. Wayne moves 2 halflings over, throws a hit, breaks armor, gets to use Ram to KO the guy. So I'm out of Bloodseeker. Not great, but we keep going. Wayne, I think, KOs like one of my journeymen with a tree. The next turn, Rumbelow blitzes a Marauder, KOs him. The next turn, Rumbelow hits like my block guard Bloodseeker, stuns him. So I'm like losing pieces at a rate that I wasn't like accustomed to in this game. And then Wayne pins my Bloodspawn with a tree. And so the situation is I have my block dodged Korngor. His screen has disintegrated because he had like 2 people running in front of him. And I had to like form like a half kind of screen, and Rumbelow KOs one of them. And so I have to and he bases my Korngor with Rumbelow and Griff. And my whole team at this point is tied up or stunned. And so I have I think this is a slight misplay on my part, because I think what my out here is blitz with my Korngor, blitz Rumbelow on 1, both down lets me Juggernaut and push Rumbelow away, dodge away from Griff, because then the tackle isn't there, and the dodge would actually I would get to work. But I use my blitz on a halfling, and I casualty that halfling, so I don't feel bad about it, but I go to make my dodge and I roll a 2 and my guy falls over and I don't have any rerolls. And so Griff's right there with the ball. Griff picks it up, makes a break for it, and my whole team's tied up. Rumbelow blitzes like another person and KOs him or something, like stuns him or whatever it is. I'm able to get 2 assists on the ball. I dodge away with one of my tackle wrestle guys, and I go and I knock Griff over. So I actually pop the ball loose after Griff has it. And on the next turn, Rumbelow blitzes one of the wrestle tackle guys, uses block and Juggernaut to put him on the ground, stuns him. Griff pops up, grabs the ball, runs further. I base Griff like with 1 extra guy. I have to make another dodge to go blitz him with the wrestle tackle guy, but I fail that dodge. Griff dodges away and scores. So obviously that was a very frustrating series of events, because it was one of those where I think Wayne had a single reroll the whole time, but he didn't need it, and then he just like broke. He had like basically all of the armor breaks he was supposed to get probably during the course of the game up to that point. He had them all concentrated in overtime. Yeah. So like my player advantage just disappears, and then when we have the same number of players, and then Wayne has 2 trees, Rumbelow and Griff, and then I have a bunch of players that I had to level up myself during the course of the season, and all of them KO whenever they get touched, then obviously I can't, I'm at a disadvantage in that. I do have 2 turns to try to tie up the game, and I actually go 0 for 3 on my KOs. And so I don't get back my players that were KO'd before this. And so I have to try to set up like this offensive. I had to try to set up like a 2-turn score with Korn with 7 on offense and Griff still on the table. I get actually a little bit further than I thought I would because Griff does end up with the ball because I just failed to pick it up on my first attempt because my sure hands Korn Gore's KO'd. Failed to pick up the ball on my first attempt. Griff has the ball at the start of my turn 16. I managed to get like a 1 die on him with a wrestle tackle dude, and I put Griff on the ground, and then I like fail my pass attempt. I think I failed the dodge away because I was gonna have to like dodge away with the tree with like a journeyman or whatever. So yeah, I would love to see what overtime looks like in the 99 other alternate universes, because I felt like I wasn't like, oh, I can't possibly lose from this situation, but I was like, I don't know what has to happen for me to lose from this position. I remember thinking that, and then going, oh, it's just every time one of my guys get touched, it explodes. Oh yeah, that would do it. Yeah. So yeah, and also Griff never failing a roll. I don't think Griff failed a roll. So from Griff's block, he did that block in the first half. From that point forward, I think Griff rolled 40 something dice, and there was like once or maybe twice where a 1 popped up, but he has like the baked in rerolls for all of that. So there you go. The corn goes down in flames right there in that game, and really frustrating to lose from that position. So
yeah, yes, unfortunate. It sounds like I feel if those Rumbelow hits had been spread out, I think there's a way to mitigate that. But all of them happening on one drive is just too much.
Yeah, it was like, I'm telling you, failed dodge into a KO, Rumbelow KOing a Bloodseeker. He broke Bloodseeker armor like in back-to-back turns, right? It was like, it was crazy. And I guess it was because I made fun of him. It's like the Michael Jordan meme, but it's just like a guy on a goat instead, going, well, I took that personally.
Yeah. Well, this other game we've got, the second semifinal game. I know the show has been out for a while, but I guess some spoilers for the final season of Breaking Bad.
Spoiler warning.
So this game was Juan versus Jim. You had Skaven, you had Necromantic Horror, and you had me parked in the back of an SUV screaming through the window trying to get Jim's attention, to no avail, watching this game from home. This was I
was gonna if we can make another pop culture reference, do you remember the surgery machine from Prometheus?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so Jim was the surgery machine from Prometheus, and Juan was trapped inside of it as the surgery machine began dissecting him. Right, and that's basically what was happening in this game, where after a certain point, and there were so many dead or injured Skaven in this game that like it looked inevitable. Right?
Yeah, it was looking at it at home and then seeing just the state of the game. I felt probably how you felt in your game. It was like, there's not a way for Jim to lose from this position. But to his credit, he found the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was a win by Skaven. It was a 3-2 win. And 2 of the Skaven scores were 1-turn touchdowns. Both of them, from our estimation and doing sort of the recap of the game, should have been preventable, but just did not kind of click. The first one, from what I understand, was a position where Jim had set up to defend it and had rolled the blitz on the kickoff And in doing so, he had some players he wanted to go make his blitz. He repositioned his defense, but left players in a position where the Rat Ogre was able to get around and blitz one player into position to allow the pushes to get the one turn.
Yeah. Blitz will get you in trouble in this version of the game. That's for sure. Back when Blitz was like a full turn, it's a different story. But in this one, a lot of times you set up a defense that's like very precise for a reason, right? Like you've got specific tackle zones you're trying to block off. And then Blitz lets you move some number of those. And then suddenly you've got gaps in your defense that weren't there before.
Yeah. And yeah, so that was a way Juan was able to score. Jim gets the ball back and sort of runs out the rest of the half, scores on his turn 16, leaves Juan with the turn 16 with 2 players on the pitch. It's very relevant since we mentioned 2 players. And
3 of them got to go on the line.
Yeah, 3. Yeah,
I mean, I think even a joke was made about how Juan was allowed to concede there with no penalty. I think
right.
That's the type of joke you make in this situation.
Yeah, so you have 2 players left versus an entire 11 for Jim. Jim was the one doling out all the punishment in this game. And he sets up his defense to stop the one turn.
From chain pushes.
Yes, from chain pushes, very relevant. And in doing so, leaves open spaces on the edge of the line. And then rolls the kick. The kick ends up in a spot where the thrower can get to it and make a pass.
And just dodge out.
And
was the thrower open? The thrower was open, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
And then on top of that is a quick snap.
Yeah.
So this is the point where I was screaming through the window in the back, a la Heisenberg. Just if you had set up position, you only need, I think, 4 players to cover.
I think 3 will do it, right?
Yeah. So you set up players to cover every possible open square on the line to not leave anywhere where you can go without being marked. In that point, you void quick snap. Quick snap does nothing because you need to have open players to be able to move. But the gutter runner finds an open spot on the line, is able to quick snap forward, catches the ball, runs it in on the last turn,
and
to win.
makes all of the dice rolls are like 5 or 6s, right? Something like that. I think that's what I remember reading, was that the dice rolls weren't even close. Yeah. It was just 5, 6, 5, 5, 6.
Yeah, my understanding of it too was because of the nature of that second half and how many players Jim was peeling. Juan wasn't using rerolls up to that point, so he had saved pretty much all of his rerolls for that last drive in case something happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of the things for just games in general is playing to your outs.
Yeah.
And that was just an example of it. So
yeah, that's like a Magic concept, right? Like in Magic, if you have to have like runner to top deck to win, that's what you play for, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing with poker. Same thing with any card game I've ever played. Same thing with miniatures. Sometimes you gotta roll boxcars, whatever it might be. You gotta play to your outs, and yeah.
Sometimes that out is just your opponent making a mistake.
Yep. Yeah. Right. I think what I did when I texted you about that was talking about how this was one of the least deserving finals of all time, and I'm fine putting that on a podcast recording. I lost the game. I'm allowed to get salty about it. I've got the bully pulpit.
That might have to be the title of the episode, honestly. But so we've got a whole finals game to talk about, though, which we can do after a quick break. Well, as deserving or undeserving as these coaches may be, we still have to crown a champion and get a name up on that plaque. So we've got a finals, Halfling and Skaven. Yeah.
This is which team would you rather have? I think this is a fun exercise. Which team would you rather have?
It's tough. So I've not played with halflings. I have played 3 games of 7s with Skaven. I have been playing a bunch of gnomes recently, so the Sunty vibe is pretty fun. I think
you're turning into one of those stunty perverts, aren't you?
I think I'm gonna stay on the non-perverted side of it. But I think for me, just like looking at a general team, I like the idea of going in with a complete team and not having to worry about sort of patching the issues. So I would lean towards Skaven.
I think I would rather have Juan's team. You've got avenues for one-turn touchdowns. You've got this rat ogre, which is like genetically engineered to kill halflings, and it presents a threat against Griff. Mm-hmm. You have this blitzer, who's mighty blow tackle and also strip ball just for good measure. He's good in Griff. You've got a thrower who's got leader built in, who has an extra reroll if the chef is used, right? So if the chef goes totally bonkers in one half, then you have the backup of leader to give you something. So yeah, you've got kick on your team. That also helps against like one turns from halflings. Now, Jim did a number on Juan's team. Juan has some amount of treasury, and he clearly likes taking bomber. So Juan won't have like a ton of players for this game. So one thing I think he's got to like calculate is how many players he wants. Like, what's his target level? Mm-hmm. He pulled his apothecary already, so he has no apothecary. So maybe he's thinking Torch's team value, right? There's basically two ways to play into halflings. One is to do the Urigan method, see how much you can cut from your team while keeping it intact, or give the halflings whatever they want and just put stuff on the table that wins the game anyway. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure which way Juan is thinking for this specific matchup. He really doesn't have like a ton to actually cut, because one of his gutter runners is missing this game, and another one is just not in the equation because it looks like he like tried to retire it or something. Mm-hmm. So he's only got two gutter runners. If he were to buy two gutter runners, you're looking at like what, 170K. You couldn't take bomber. I like bomber into halflings because the bomber is basically a blitz against a tree without you needing to worry about strength, right? Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. He's got some skills he can take. So the question there is how many skills are you willing to take? And because that's all money that goes into Wayne's pocket. Mm-hmm. If you think, well, I can't stop Griff and the chef. How much extra do I want to give him? That's a way you could take some randoms on some of these players that have like enough skills for that. I don't think this team is getting redrafted anytime soon based off of the damage that they've taken, based off of the stat downs and whatnot. I think you could probably do better just starting a fresh Skaven team and giving them 6 primaries than what this team currently has with all of its like permanent injuries. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say. Yeah, it's tough to say what you should do here.
Yeah. That's the thing. Is like I think this is very much sort of like a full send. Like I don't think you would want to take an Armor 8 Rat Ogre into another 10 games because it's not surviving 10 more games in that state.
Yeah, it's actually, I think it's lucky to be here. Same thing with his Armor 8 Blitzer. I think both of these players are lucky to be here. You're renting anybody who's got. You're renting Blood Bowl players anyway, right? Over a long enough period of time, Blood Bowl players' survivability eventually becomes 0. Mm-hmm. But especially armor down players, they're much more likely to be hurt. Mm-hmm. So the one thing I was like toying around with was like a random strength on the Rat Ogre. I think there's like a lot of really good hits. There's really only 2 misses, right?
Okay.
It's like multi-block and pile driver kind of misses. Mm-hmm. I don't think you would pile driver the Rat Ogre. One Griff has like built-in pile driver protection because Fend stops pile driver, but you wouldn't pile driver a tree and you wouldn't pile driver a halfling. So I think pile driver ends up being a miss. And I don't think multi-block is particularly good. There might be a situation where you could throw 2 hits with the Rat Ogre against 2 different halflings, and you'd be happy to.
Yeah, that's definitely. I was getting a little bit of like old school movie PSA vibes from that. You wouldn't pile drive a halfling. Like, okay, they said I wouldn't download a car either, but
yeah. Well, guess what? Guess what my 3D printer is going to do?
Yeah, you wouldn't download a Blood Bowl team. Yeah, it's definitely gonna be an interesting one. Obviously, we're gonna be doing some coverage for this game.
Yeah, so. That's the current plan, right? From my understanding, is we're gonna attempt to provide some live commentary on the game.
Yes.
And we are going to be streaming the game from sunny South Carolina, to wherever you get your podcast. We have a plan. We've got the means. We've got the daring. And we plan to bring some commentary.
Yes, the means of production are sitting in a corner currently, ready to be reshaped into what we need.
Yeah, I think this game could come down to a one-turn attempt. Right, both teams have ways to do it. Reroll usage, like metering your rerolls. I think there's like a list of 4 players that as long as they're in the game, one is probably favored. I think the Rat Ogre, the Blitzer, and both Gutter Runners, the longer they stay active and working in the game, the better Juan's chances of winning that game are. And then the trees, I actually don't think the Rat Ogre poses much of a threat against the trees because he doesn't have claws. Maybe he gets lucky. Maybe Juan feels like fouling those trees, but I don't think Juan's going to have enough extra players to really justify fouling. Right? I think your foul targets are like Griff. Yeah. And then I don't know what Juan might plan to try to give Wayne for his second star in that game. There's a lot of options on the table. So, yeah. It's the position I found myself before playing Wayne was like, what do I want to cut on my team? What's my actual advantage in the game? And what I've determined was my advantage was showing up and just submitting my roster as it was, and because that gave me the maximum amount of money to play with inducements, and I would see what Wayne was willing to spend, like what he wanted in inducements, right? I don't know how much of that might happen before this game. There might be some amount of it. You could random a skill on a guy, and they could go back and forth seeing if any roster changes are going to be made. So I don't know. The thing is, I really think it's going to come down to who can get a one turn in this game. I think that's the most likely outcome.
Yeah, I think like as it sits currently, there is one of the avenues that Juan has for his one turn is a lot harder to do in this game, right? Just because trees, stand firm, like you're cutting off that chain push avenue.
Right.
So that's got to feel somewhat advantageous for Wayne. It's just like as long as you don't roll a quick snap, your odds of getting one turned are very, very low.
Yeah, substantially lower, for sure.
So that's got to feel solid. Although it also could lead to like a thing where you were talking about the random skills, like a random juggernaut.
Right.
If that happens, on that Red Ogre could lead to
yeah.
some scary
I would
situations.
hate for this game to come down to whatever skill the Red Ogre takes at random, right? Because honestly, like armbar on this Red Ogre probably kills a halfling somewhere in this game, right?
Yeah.
With the Prehensile Tail tackle.
Yeah.
And if you slap on armbar on top of that, that's a disgusting Red Ogre for bullying halflings. And honestly, Griff, like it could end up in a situation where Griff is having to run for his life from this Rat Ogre, and armbar makes a difference there, right? Yeah, armbar I think is like a hit. It can't hit strong arm. Already has mighty blow. Can't hit grab because it's got frenzy, but it could hit multi block. Could hit pile driver. I think both of those are not great. Brawler is another one that's not great, but stand firm, guard are both good for sure. Stand firm makes it so that this Rat Ogre can surf people all day and not have to worry about getting surfed back. And then guard is just really good because a lot of times the situation you want to force against halflings is like a scrum where the halflings are kind of like trapped and they have to make dodges to get away. And guard is like a really good way for somebody like a gutter runner or some of your line rats to have enough strength so that they can't just get blocked out of the way and open up an avenue for halflings to escape. Guard does a lot in those halfling where everybody's just kind of like scrumming for the ball. So
yeah, it's gonna be a wild one. Fun enough, I don't think we've mentioned it yet, but this is a rematch of the last Fresh Start championship.
Yeah.
So
yeah, this team from Juan is actually one of the most mortal teams. I think I've said that like 3 or 4 times now in the playoffs. This is he's got some disgusting players on this team, but there's like armor downs on key positions, which makes them, not free, but significantly easier to hurt.
right.
Whereas in Wayne's case, I think his trees might be in better shape than they were in the last time he did this. But I think Wayne won the last one on a 1 turn, right? And Juan was playing orcs, and so I think his only avenue to like a 1 turn was with a goblin score or something like that. So, I don't know. I mean, a lot of it's going to come down to decisions made before the game. And then you actually get into the game, you'll start rolling some dice. And then we'll see where it kind of goes from there. You could talk in circles around all the inducement decisions, because it's one of those where if he does this, I can do this type of thing. And you fast forward and 3.5 hours of a podcast have gone by, and we're rivaling those History of Rome podcasts.
Yeah, but we're at that point we're discussing the merits of medical unguents versus bottles of heady brew.
Yeah, I actually learned how those work. I thought those were that it's like the result of the casualty dies 10, 11, or 12. I thought it was the result of the injury die was 10, 11, or 12. So I was like, oh, it's if your guy gets casualty, but no, it's like specifically if you hit like the niggling injury part of the 10, 11, or 12 on the D16 after your guy's casualty, can you unget them back in the game? And I was like, what? That's stupid. It's like awful.
Yeah, that's pretty pretty
bad.
Yeah.
It's awful.
We'll have to do a deep dive on that for the next season of the podcast.
Yeah. Terrible inducements.
Yes.
There's definitely some good inducements either player could take, right? There's a lot of that like infamous coaching staff. If you think you're gonna get, if you think the number of players that you have matters, then like Carry Coldsteel can enter the equation. If you're worried about, there's like both players would consider wizards, right? Because wizards are something that isn't on the board. You can't go blitz the wizard to take it out of play. The wizard's just in play. And so there's like, if the opponent is trying to stall, then like the wizard can be used to cut that option off, right? The wizard's pretty good for Skaven because just the nature of gutter runners. If your opponent's trying to cage up and keep the ball locked up, you just drop the orbital strike, have a gutter runner go catch the ball and run in the other direction. I mean, that's like one way to play it. You wouldn't have bomber. Bomber's kind of like a wizard every turn in some situations, but the wizard has upside of like frogging somebody too, and just taking them out of the play.
Yeah, it will be a very interesting game. I'm looking forward to getting into the decisions once we have it laid out, because like being able to sit there and be like, okay, this is what is being done. Yeah, that'll ease up a lot of
right now
gymnastics.
Right now, both teams have like not unlimited possibilities, but they got a lot of plays they could make, once we've got a roster of like, did you ever play Flesh and Blood, the card game?
No, I have not.
I'm cross promoting here. That's what I'm allowed to do because this is a Game Store podcast. In Flesh and Blood, your characters start at their most powerful. And as the game progresses, both players lose resources as the game goes on. And Blood Bowl is very similar to this, right? Where your team is the most powerful it can be on turn one. And then from there, things start happening and you have to expend resources. And as you expend those, then, you have less to work with, right? And so a lot of these games are kind of like that, where some of them can get renewed in the case of like rolling KOs and getting them back on the table. But for a drive, every player that's taken off the pitch, that's one less resource you've got to use. So, if the game goes to overtime, I think it probably favors Juan. I think Wayne's really incentivized to win this in regulation. Like I said, the longer the Rat Ogre and the Blitzer are on the table, peeling halflings, the less likely Wayne is to win. Once Griff's out of cannon fodder, short little dudes to put in front of him to get hit, then eventually the Rat Ogre will make its way to him, and you really don't want Griff taking tackle mighty blow hits during the course of that game. So
yeah, well, I think we've expended our analysis at this point.
Yeah,
because we're not going on to every single possible.
But what happens if the Blitzer rolls? I'm done.
Have you considered the Trundlefoot triplets?
Yes, and I considered that they're garbage.
Oh, wow. I know 3 people that would be very upset about that.
Look, I don't care if you play a stunty team, just don't do it around my kids, okay?
All right. Well, I think that's going to cut it for us this week. If you're listening to this as it comes out, we're going to have our championship stream. It's going to be this upcoming Friday. That's the 23rd. We're aiming for a 5 p.m. start. We're going to have some live commentary along with it. So
I think that'll be fun.
It's going to be a blast. Yeah. You're going to want to tune in for that. Make sure to hit subscribe on our YouTube channel to get updates on that. And wherever you're listening to this as well, like we're on all the different podcasting platforms. Make sure you're following us, like it. If you went through my little scheme last week of going and listening on, a third of the platforms we're on, this is the time to go to the next group and like all those and give us reviews there. Find the one that most suits you. It might sound slightly different. Maybe there's an Easter egg on one of the platforms. You never know what it could be. So yeah, make sure, liking, following, give us all that love and support. We appreciate you listening. One more reminder, next week starting on June 1st, get your rosters in for that, whether you're redrafting or putting in a new team. And then we're about a little over a month away from Palmetto Cup.
Yes.
Well,
yeah, probably should have mentioned that at the beginning as well, but looking forward to that. It'll be fun to play some tournament Blood Bowl.
Yeah, find your teammate and get ready for that. So, but that's all I got for this week. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you all next time.
Goodbye, everybody.